What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to be going over your guys' drafts in a draft review video. Now I know that we usually go over these on a Sunday night stream, but unfortunately I had to kind of pre-record quite a few videos because of end of work sprint deadlines. So in this video, I'll be taking 5 drafts from you guys, 3 from the Discord channel and 2 from my Twitter page that you guys replied to on one of my tweets on Sunday, and I'll be going through them as they are quite different. Now I have actually called this a draft review instead of a draft rating system because I won't necessarily rate them from 0 to 10 like some other people do. I'm going to be going over kind of position by position, player by player, and telling you guys if I agree or if there are some alternatives. Now, as I mentioned, all 5 of these drafts are quite different, so make sure that you stick to the end, and if you are new to the channel, make sure that you subscribe for a nice upcoming season. Now, I'll probably do one of these either on Sunday next week, or at least on one of next week's videos, so make sure that you guys are on the Discord channel, on my Twitter page, to ensure that your draft can get reviewed. With that being said, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. This video has been sponsored by FantasyFootballFix.com, introducing the Elite XI Team Reveal, the most advanced team reveal to date, with push notifications allowing you to track every move these managers make throughout the season. With a combined 77 top 10k finishes, you don't want to miss out on this one. Compare your team to these elite managers. Unlock stats and data to see how these managers maintain their teams. Find out more about the Elite XI Team Reveal over at FantasyFootballFix.com. So one thing before we get actually into the drafts, I want to give you guys a quick disclaimer, and these are kind of things to note as I go through the team. I'm going to be going over a little bit of a different format. I'm going to start off with the first draft. We're going to go kind of player by player, reviewing each player individually, but then from then on, to kind of reduce time, I don't want to waste your guys' times on any videos. I'm going to be reducing that to kind of groupings of players that I've already spoken about. For example, if I talk about Trent and Salah in the first draft, in the second draft, if they also have those players, I won't really spend too much time on them. I'll kind of just note them in terms of the overall price structure and that sort of thing, and then I'll talk about the differences from draft to draft. Another thing to note is that these drafts are going to be probably pretty good. I think if you guys are watching this channel, you're probably a pretty good FPL manager, and therefore even if there are some negative things about the draft, your draft is probably not that bad. It's just I think that it can improve in that specific area. So no egos are hopefully going to be hurt in this video, and if there are, drop them in the comments down below and we can have a little bit of a debate if you think that I'm wrong and that you're right. But now going on to the first draft, and as you guys can see on the right hand side, I've got the price structure and I have the bench because these factors are something that we should talk about firstly before we go on to the starting 11. So in terms of the bench here, we've got a relatively cheap bench, the pretty template bench to be honest, except for the 4.5 forward. I think it's Plunge or however you do pronounce it, but he's going to be the Crystal Palace second string as striker that's actually been playing a lot of preseason minutes and actually getting a few goals. Now in terms of that 4.5 forward, they're probably going to be third place on your bench, so just pick one that you think might get you some points. Maybe the Crystal Palace forward will be that man. Now in terms of the bank, we have 0.5 in the bank. Now I did actually estimate this from the picture because I actually have a similar draft to this if you guys did check out my updated draft video that I released on Friday. So the back line is pretty similar, and then there are some other alternatives in the forward and the midfield departments. But this draft is going to come from Zeetro. Thank you for submitting your draft, and we're going to be going over it from position to position as you are the first selected option. Now unfortunately Zeetro, I selected you first because you are the most template out of all the drafts we selected, and therefore we'll get through a good number of options so that in the next couple drafts we can go through those players quite quickly. So starting off in goal, we've got the kind of very template premium asset here. It's going to be Edison at 5.5. Now I say more template because I think you guys are either going to go for a 4.5 or go for Edison. I've seen Edouard Mendy in some people's drafts, but I think his kind of ownership has dipped in the template, and I definitely think that Edison and those 4.5s have increased in popularity. Now I do really like Edison. In my own team, I personally have him. I think out of those Man City defenders, the cheapest one to get, going to play every single game. I just do worry about some bonus points and save points, because that Man City defense is pretty solid. But nevertheless, going on to the rest of the back line, we've got Trent at 7.5. Now, he is a great option to have. I would almost consider him essential in your guys' teams. I would only consider him not essential if you guys are going to go for Robertson and kind of need that 0.5 very badly, and then I can maybe understand it, but I would probably have Trent in my team, and like Zeetro, I also have Robertson at the back. So these two are my favorite kind of defensive double up. You guys know that I prefer the Robertson-Trent combination than the Trent and Diaz combination. I just feel at 7.0 million, great value in the bank there, and I think the FPL have done us a favor at pricing the defenders so cheap. That trend kind of continues into the rest of the back line. We've got Cancelo at 7.0, and then we have Reece James at 6.0. Now, both these two assets are in my team, and as you guys can see, the back line is completely in my updated draft. So the complete back five is in my updated draft. So you guys are obviously going to understand why I like it. I just feel the double up with the Man City and the Liverpool defense, it's where it's at for the start of the season with those excellent fixtures going forward, and I think Reece James is perfectly enough coverage for that Chelsea defense. We saw Chelsea lose 4-0 against Arsenal. Now I don't think they'll carry that form into the Prem, but I still don't think I want to kind of double up with Chilwell and James. Chilwell not even featuring in that Arsenal game, so I think Reece James is the one to go for at 6.0. So a lot of budget has been taken up in this defensive department, but I still think if you look at the options, you want to have all these assets. But now let's go on and see what Zeetro selected in his midfield department. So the first player there, you probably predicted it. This is not going to be a hashtag no seller draft. This is a hashtag Mo seller draft. So Zeetro on the Egyptian bandwagon. So 13.0 million is a lot to spend, but I think if you're going to captain him, perfectly adequate to have him. And nothing much more to say about him that hasn't been said already. But now's where things get a little bit more spicy from Zeetro's point of view. He's got a Bailey from Aston Villa at 5.0 million. He seems to have increased in a massive amount of popularity this past week, and it seems like he's the 5.0 million midfielder to go for. Now, he didn't start in Aston Villa's most recent preseason game, but he came off the bench and scored, and Stevie G after the game was heaping praise onto this midfielder. So I think if you want to go for him, want a cheap option, 100%, but I think just be careful of some potential rotation because Aston Villa have quite a few forwards and wingers going forward. Now the next option is template, but also quite cheap. It's going to be Pedro Neto from Wolves at 5.5 million. Very cheap price point here in the midfield department. Bailey and Neto, kind of those holding two midfielders in this formation, but I think both of them are great value for money as long as they do start. I'm more confident about Neto starting. He's basically scored in every preseason game that he has featured for Wolves, and I just hope that he continues that form going into the season. But he is quite a template pick, and that's usually a good thing with these cheap options. That means that they're underpriced, and I think that Pedro Neto is on for a great season, as long as he doesn't get injured. Now, his final option in midfield is going to be Rashford at 6.5 million. Now, yes, I do agree. At 6.5, Rashford could be great value for money. But for me personally, I'm waiting for these final preseason games to conclude. I just want to see how United kind of set up. That front three of Rashford, Martial, and Sancho has kind of got a lot of minutes in this preseason, and therefore they should be kind of the reliable options going into game week 1 against Brighton. At 6.5, not too much risk there, but there might be some other options that I do prefer, such as an Odegaard at the same price point, but also you could go for a Martinelli at 0.5 cheaper. But I can't really complain too much because this is kind of a more of a punt position, and because the rest of the team is quite template, I'm willing to give Zeetro this one. And now finally going to Zeetro's forward line. I've mentioned template throughout this draft, and that's exactly what's going to happen in the forward department with Gabriel Jesus, the most highly owned option in FPL at the current moment, and then also Erling Haaland in that forward line. Now Haaland, yes, there is some competition between Haaland and Kane. Haaland scoring yesterday against Bayern Munich, but I do still think he's a great option to kind of look at, and between him and Kane, I think it's quite close. In my personal opinion, I do prefer Harry Kane, but because the price points are the exact same here, this is a very flexible position, and I'm pretty sure Zeetro coming into that game week 1 deadline might change him out for Kane. Gabriel Jesus actually did get injured in that Chelsea game, but it looks like it's just a knock and he should be fine for game week 1. But overall, I really like this drafting. It has enough variation here. My only concern is with those cheaper midfielders, such as a Bailey. Don't exactly know if he's going to start this season, and if he does, how many minutes will he actually get? But I guess because you wanted Rashford at that 0.5 more expensive than those other midfielders at 6.0 million, that's probably why you had to go for the 5.0 midfielder. Now, because you have 0.5 on your bank, I might say downgrade Rashford to Martinelli if he does look like he'll start this season. Therefore, you could upgrade Bailey, but if you do want him at that price point, 100% fine. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about Zeetro's draft. Yes, it is template, but I like the Rashford punt, and the midfield department doesn't look as template as other teams. Now, the next draft we're going to go over is also from a Discord member. It's going to be from BearishBull. Now, hopefully that's not a kind of crypto reference. Otherwise, we might have to have some Fs in chat down below. I know my own portfolio has taken a bit of a hit this year and looks to be on a red arrow at the current moment. But hopefully your FPL team won't be on a red arrow, will be on a green arrow, going to game week 2, game week 3, and so on and so forth. Starting off with your bank, 0.0 in the bank. And then on the bench, we've kind of switched up with the more expensive bench. We've got the back 5 here, so obviously Neco Williams could not be in the back line, and therefore we're going to go for a 4.5 midfielder as well. Moving on to our starting 11, we've had a switch up in the goalkeeper department. Meslier, the Leeds man between the sticks, comes in at 4.5 million. I'm 100% fine with this. I think any kind of 4.5, as long as they have decent clean sheet potential, or at least save point potential where Meslier kind of fits in, I'm fine with that as it's a low risk position. In terms of that back 5 formation, you'll notice that it's a 5-3-2. A little bit of an interesting formation here, but in terms of the 3 main kind of defenders, no questions there. We've got Trent, Robbo, and Cancelo. I have no problems there. We've got some Liverpool coverage in the double up. Then also we have some Man City coverage with Cancelo, which I'm perfectly happy with. This is where the draft kind of switches up a bit. We've got Ruben Diaz in the back line with Laporte out injured. Diaz looks to be a shoo-in at that centre-back position. Has had a relatively good preseason, and that's why at 6.0 million, I'm fine with it. And I mean, that Man City defence, like Liverpool's defence, should probably be quite solid in at least the opening couple games. BearishBull then switches it up here with the Zinchenko pick. Now, I do apologize for that bad Photoshop. I simply cropped the image of Odegaard and then Zinchenko in the background. But at 5.0 million, he looks like a great option and did actually start at left back apparently in that Chelsea game. Now, there have been some question marks about Zinchenko. Where will he play? Will it be in midfield? Will it be in kind of the fullback position? But at 5.0 million, as long as he starts, I think he should be great value for money in that Arsenal team. So in terms of the back five, I really do like it. I think we've got some combinations here. We've got an Arsenal defender, 2 Man City and 2 Liverpool. I think in terms of safety, those are the teams that I would try to cover from a defensive point of view, as Chelsea look a little bit up and down at the current moment. We're then going to move on to the midfield department, and BearishBull has gone for the template Salah and Neto combination. Relatively cheap here in terms of Neto, and you got the premium with Salah, which I really do like. And both these two players have been in most of my drafts, even before the prices were released. But here's where kind of BearishBull switches things up. He's gone for Sancho in that midfield department at 7.5 million. Now, in terms of Man United midfielders, Sancho is my current favorite. Yes, I would actually pay the premium on him if I wanted a United midfielder, as I just think he's such a baller. So I'm perfectly happy with this move. If you guys want to take a punt on him, go for it. Unfortunately, this carries a little bit more risk because he is more expensive than someone like a Rashford and that sort of thing. But I think if he starts the season quite hot, as he has in preseason, he should be worth that price tag. And then finally going to the forward line, it's template. Yet again, we've got Harry Kane and then also Gabriel Jesus. No complaints here. If there's going to be 2 strikers up front, it's got to be Kane/Haaland and Jesus in my opinion. But I do like the fact that BearishBull switched it up and gone for a nice back 5, then also Sancho in midfield. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I actually do like this draft. I think there are some things that I might change. Maybe go for an Edison and another kind of defender to go for, just because you are securing yourself about potential rotation with those Man City centre-backs. And in terms of Zinchenko, it's a wait and see for me, or I might just go for a 4.5 Arsenal defender. But as I said, let me know in the comments down below what you guys think, but let's get on to the next one. And now going on to the next draft, and as you guys can see on our formation and our bench, we've got another 5 at the back. So on our bench, we have to have those 4.5 midfielders, but no, 2 of them is not enough. We've got to go for 3 of them because Aaron's gone for a 5-2-3. So very different formation here, and that's why I actually have picked it. I want to show you guys what you can actually do, and as I always say, there's not one way to win FPL, and I like to see what Aaron's actually done here. Now starting off in the defensive positions, the goalkeeper is going to be Raya, another switch up in that 4.5 slot. I do like the Brentford goalkeeper, my current 4.5 of choice, but I do worry about Shakosha's kind of rotation there, but I do think Raya will get the start of the season, as in preseason, he's actually looked quite strong. Now going on to the outfield defenders, we've got Trent and then also Perisic. A little bit of a switch up here, we've gone for Perisic. He actually had his first kind of minutes for Spurs in the game on Saturday, so it is nice to see that he's picking up some minutes, but I am a little bit concerned about those Spurs fullbacks, as there's just so many of them at left wing back and right wing back. But Perisic should be the first choice under Conte, and I think these two look perfectly fine in that defense. But now the next 2 defenders might give you a little bit of an insight into the rest of the team, and if you guys did watch my freemium draft, this will look pretty similar. It's going to be 3 4.5 defenders, and the 4.5s of choice from Aaron are going to be Dan Burn, Justin, and then Ait Nori from Wolves. So in terms of Newcastle, Leicester, and Wolves, I'm perfectly fine with. I like the Newcastle defense, I like the Wolves defense, but the Leicester defense is my only question mark, and I do worry about some potential rotation for James Justin. But when he has been fit in Premier League seasons, has been absolute gold, and at 4.5 could be one of the best value players in the game this season. But only look at the defense. I know from the defensive point of view, it doesn't look as strong, but when you guys do see the midfield and the forward department, you'll understand why Aaron had to go so cheap. So in terms of our 2 midfielders, we can see some Sancho love yet again. We've got Salah and Sancho in that midfield department, which I think might be quite a nice combination in that midfield. What I might do though is I might actually go for Pedro Neto. I know it's kind of a boring template option, but that does allow you to upgrade your defensive department, and I would consider some Man City coverage. So that's probably my biggest talking point about this Aaron, but when you do see the forward department, I have no complaints. And as you guys can see, Kane, Haaland, and then also Jesus. So if you guys want to go the polar opposite from big at the back, big at the front here, Kane, Haaland, and Jesus is the way to go, and these premiums look absolutely outstanding. Now you guys know my thought about a 3 premium draft. I don't really like it, but if Aaron does, 100% go for it. But as I said, I probably would downgrade Sancho and then upgrade my defensive position because I just think they're great value for money this season. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Is this the best premium draft that you guys have seen? Is this at least better than my draft that I created last week? And are any of you actually going for a 3 premium draft? And now going on to the penultimate draft of this video, it's going to be from Black Snapper 77. Let me know if you're a fisher down below, because I do know the Black Snapper is going to be a very nice fish to actually catch, I think, but I might be completely wrong on that one. Now starting off with our formation, we've got a nice 4-3-3 and then also a relatively cheap bench here. Now yet again, we can actually go for Neco Williams because we have a 4 at the back, and therefore that allows you to get that 17.0 million bench. In terms of the bank, 0.0 left in the bank, so all the money is in the bench and the starting 11, which I would actually recommend going into game week 1. Now going over our defensive department, the back 5 is going to be Mesley in goal. We've got Robertson at 7.0, Shaw and James as the double up in Chelsea, and then Zinchenko at 5.0. Now I have some concerns about this. Yes, you don't own Trent, but that's perfectly fine if you want to go for Robertson. Maybe if you needed that 0.5 really badly, I can understand it, but I will make my conclusion as we see the rest of the team. Now between Shaw and James, I don't really know how to think about the double up. As I mentioned, Shaw didn't actually play the previous game against Arsenal in preseason a couple of days ago, and therefore there's a little bit of concern from a fitness point of view. Chelsea fans have been saying that Shaw looks a little bit rusty, and therefore him not getting any minutes in a game is a little bit of a worry for me, and therefore I might actually switch out Shaw for either a cheaper option, or I might try upgrade him to either Trent or maybe Cancelo. But in terms of Zinchenko and James, I don't have any concerns there. Great defensive options as long as they do start. But this is where Black Snapper actually switches things up. This is going to be a no Salah draft. So yes, a hashtag no Salah draft. And he's actually incorporated De Bruyne in the midfield department. So Luis Diaz comes in at 8.0. And then also we have Martinelli at 6.0. And I really don't have any concerns about those two players. But De Bruyne is an interesting one for me. I guess if you don't want to go for Salah, 100% go for this. I think if you guys want to go for a Man City captain throughout the opening game weeks, as I mentioned, I would go for De Bruyne as he is nailed in that starting 11, unlike a Haaland, who I think might get some minutes managed. But to really kind of see what Black Snapper is actually doing in this team, I want to show you guys the forward line. It's going to be Kane and Jesus as expected. This is a very kind of template front two, but it is nice to see that he's gone for De Bruyne and Kane for some variation in terms of captaincy. But now as we see what Snapper actually was doing in terms of his forward line, he's actually gone for Darwin Núñez at 9.0 million. So yes, this actually is a hashtag no Salah draft, but we do have some Salah coverage here in terms of Robertson, Diaz, and then also Darwin Núñez. So I do actually understand it, but I probably wouldn't go for this kind of double up in the Liverpool attack. I just think that Diaz and Darwin are a little bit too unproven in the Prem at the current moment. Yes, Diaz looks absolutely sensational when he does start, but I do think he has to work on his finishing, like also Darwin. So I do like the idea, and if you want to go for it 100%, but I think if you want to go for no Salah, I wouldn't go for Darwin Núñez. I would simply go for a more expensive midfielder, such as maybe a Mason Mount if you want to vary it, or maybe a James Maddison or a Saka. Another Man City midfielder might not hurt between Foden and Mahrez and Grealish. You can't really go wrong. Any of those three should probably score points. I just worry about Darwin Núñez and his adjustment to the Premier League. But you guys can let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about this. This is a very interesting draft for me, but I do think there is some work to do. I don't like no Trent and having Robertson only, but I can understand it because you want a Darwin Núñez. But if you downgrade Darwin Núñez to an 8.0 midfielder, you'll be able to upgrade the defensive department, such as a Trent and then maybe also a Man City coverage defender. But now finally going on to our last draft of the video, and this is going to be quite an interesting one with the 5-4-1 formation. So a bit of an interesting one there. I haven't really seen many options go for it, but what I will say is that I have seen a lot of people over on Twitter adjusting to this formation as it allows you to get more midfield and defensive power. Starting off with the bench, you can see that we've gone for a nice little variation here with two 4.5 forwards. I don't really like this too much. I think you have to go for a nailed forward, and let's see if Odd actually goes for one. So this draft is going to be from Odd, and it is an interesting one as I said, so let's get straight into it. So in terms of the defense, we've got some template options here. We've got Edison and Cancelo, the double up in Man City. Then we have Reece James, which I'm fine with, and also Trent, who I think is more essential. So in terms of a back four, perfectly happy with this, but now let's actually go and see who the other defenders are. So the two other defenders from Odd are going to be Gabriel and Perisic, and I can understand these two options. If you guys watch my defender review video, Gabriel is regarded as the best Arsenal defender to actually own, and he might be worth paying that premium price tag. So it'll be actually interesting to see if Odd goes for Zinchenko or Gabriel, as they are at the same price point. You're kind of going for a centre back or a left back or potential midfielder in Zinchenko, but Gabriel also does offer that set piece attacking threat. In terms of Perisic, 100% fine with him, but I would actually worry about his minutes going into game week 1. But if he does look like he's playing for Spurs in preseason, I'm fine to go for him, but I'd also heed some caution there. Going on to midfield department, Odd has gone for the template Salah and Neto combination. I'm perfectly fine with that, but now let's see what the actual other midfielders are. So Odd has actually managed to squeeze two 8.0 midfielders here. He's gone for Luis Diaz and Mason Mount. Understandable, there's no Robertson in defense, so you want to kind of go for a Liverpool triple up, and Diaz is the man to go for at 8.0 million. Now in terms of Mason Mount, I do like the punt. I just want to see how Chelsea kind of adjust, because under Tuchel, the attackers have actually struggled quite a bit, but I think if you guys are going to go for a Chelsea attacker, Mason Mount at 8.0 million is perfectly fine. I actually do like this kind of midfield combination. We've got Salah, the cheap pick and Neto, and then two power 8.0s that hopefully will get you those points. And now going on to Odd's forward line, we've got Harry Kane up front, the sole man up front, which I tend to agree with. I probably wouldn't go for Haaland because of his minutes being managed by Pep, potentially in this Premier League season, whereas Harry Kane is going to play every single game, probably even if he's injured. So at least now you've got Andreas on your bench for some coverage, as I don't think the other 4.5 forwards are going to give you much. So overall, in terms of this team, I think this team took me by surprise. I actually do really like it, but what I would say is I want some Arsenal attacking coverage because everyone seems to own Jesus, and therefore I might downgrade maybe a Mason Mount to a Jesus and then get some more midfield coverage on your bench. But if you like Mason Mount, you can also downgrade Diaz. I probably wouldn't change the defensive department as it seems good value for money, and I think that Gabriel might be a nice alternative to those Arsenal defenders. But yet again, let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about this draft. Also, let me know what draft was your favorite out of these 5, and have any of these drafts actually turned your attention and you actually might look at them for your own team. But this is basically the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please remember to like if you did and subscribe if you're new, subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys for loads more content throughout this week, so make sure that you hit that bell notification and subscribe if you're new, as this is going to be a great FPL season. But I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.